beneath the modern streets.
They found a necropolis of more than 40 graves spanning between the 3rd and 6th century CE. That basically spans the ultimate decline of the Western Roman Empire. We've identified 3 main types of graves. Some are simple, rectangular cut pits where the dead are laid to rest and covered with earth. Others reuse fragments of roof tiles arranged to form sort of a rough enclosure. But the 3rd type is the most distinctive of all. Burials inside amphorae. Now, amphorae are jars that are used to transport wine and olive oil and brine and stuff like that. But here they're used for burials. In one case, 2 vessels were even fitted together to hold a single individual.
Jar burials appear across the Mediterranean, but the Ile Rousse necropolis breaks the mold. Unlike the more common child amphora burials, adults were interred in these jars.
Corsica in late antiquity was shaped by shifting empires and powerful trade routes. At Ile Rousse, the origins of imported amphorae raised questions about who these people were and where they may have came from.
From the 4th to 7th centuries, Corsica imported wine, oil, and brine in amphorae, shipped from Carthage, or present-day Tunisia. Finding those same containers reused for burials suggests a direct link to North Africa and the powers that ruled there.
It's possible there's a connection to the Vandals, a Germanic people who captured Carthage in 439 CE, the richest city of Roman North Africa. From that new capital, they built a maritime empire spanning the Western Mediterranean and secured the island of Corsica as part of their conquest of Roman-ruled islands. Given this, maybe the dead at Ile Rousse were settlers or officials tied to Vandal rule.
It's possible, but archaeological evidence for Vandal burials is limited and it's regionally inconsistent. So it's difficult to draw any firm connection to the amphora burials on Corsica.
The austerity of these burials may point to a community under pressure, where necessity shaped how the dead were laid to rest.
In times of epidemic or sudden mass mortality, communities came under immense pressure, often forcing changes to established burial customs. Amphorae may have offered a quick solution if deaths came too fast for formal rites. Could some of the unusual interments on Corsica reflect emergency burials improvised in the face of a catastrophe?
In the mid-6th century, plague swept across the Mediterranean and Europe. Beginning in Egypt and reaching Constantinople in 542 CE, it returned in waves for more than 2 centuries, killing millions. In the imperial capital, cemeteries overflowed. So mass pits and trenches were dug. And when even those filled, bodies were stacked in towers or cast into the sea.
But what we see at Ile Rousse is nothing like the chaos of a plague pit. The graves are generally laid out in an orderly east-west orientation. And while certain plague cemeteries display careful alignment and adherence to Christian norms, burial responses to mass death vary. Meaning the use of amphora in Corsica may point to a very different logic altogether.
Beyond the amphorae, the use of salvaged materials in some burials may offer the clearest clues to the cemetery's character.
At Ile Rousse, some graves were framed with broken roof tiles, sometimes mixed with amphora sherds, a layout reminiscent of building tombs, where reused tiles formed a simple casing around the body. But here, the construction is far more rudimentary, using low-quality terracotta kind of salvaged from ruined buildings nearby. So you kind of get the impression that this was an imperfect solution, kind of making do with what was available.
In Corsica, the North African amphora found at the site were among the island's most common imports. But once they served their original purpose, they were simply reused. Vessels were broken apart, sections cut and refitted into a type of coffin. Rather than discard what trade had made plentiful, the community seemingly turned everyday containers into material for burial.
Nearly 400 miles east, on the Croatian island of Var, excavations in a town of the same name uncovered a late antique necropolis from the late 4th to early 5th century CE.
In an area covering just 700 square feet, archaeologists documented 20 graves holding the skeletal remains of 32 people. Burials at the site range from simple earthenware and amphora graves to tile-lined tombs, along with a single masonry tomb holding 12 skeletons, a striking parallel to the mixed forms seen at Il Rus.
The finds at Far show how 4th and 5th century communities used amphora and roof tiles in burials, combining everyday materials in ways that reflect local adaptation in funerary practice. They also reveal new insights into ceramic production and trade networks through imported wares, some of which are the first documented in the Adriatic.
This reflects a broader Mediterranean practice known as enkitrismos, burying people inside terracotta containers. That was common from the 3rd century onward, particularly in coastal towns where there were a lot of terracotta jars. But by the 5th century, it was very common for child burials to be done this way in early Christian cemeteries.
That's what makes Il Rus so interesting. You have adults and infants buried together, and so far, not a single grave good. It's a departure from the familiar pattern that could reflect nothing more than pragmatic reuse of abundant containers. Or it may signal beliefs about life and death that remain beyond our reach.
The necropolis at Il Rus is one of the few anchors of this region's ancient past. It preserves a vital record and, just as clearly, shows how partial the story here remains. Excavations at Petra, Jordan's most historical ancient city, reveal a remarkable discovery.
The plaza in front of the treasury was once a flat courtyard, but it's more than that. It's also the roof of a hidden tomb.
So who were these people and why were they buried here?
A cache of coins is found beneath a 17th century Scottish hunting lodge.
Beneath the hearthstone slab of the fireplace, they found a pot. Inside were 36 coins.
The hoard fits Glencoe's plundering past.
Gas workers digging trenches in Lima, Peru, uncover a pair of mysterious tombs.
One contained human remains, still wrapped in a torn bundle. The other was empty.
Who was the individual buried here? Why was the second chamber left empty? And what do these remains reveal about the coastal societies that flourished long before Lima became Peru's capital?
Below the busy streets of the world's cities exists a hidden realm of wonder. Sprawling ancient complexes, mysterious tombs, top-secret military bases, strange structures, and lost artifacts buried beneath our feet and long forgotten until now. Underground marvels are exposed to reveal what lies hidden beneath the cities. In the deserts of modern-day Jordan, south of Amman, lies Petra, a city that once served as the capital of the Nabatean kingdom.
The Nabateans began as nomads from the Negev desert, but rose to power by dominating incense routes across a vast network that stretched over 1,200 miles and connected southern Arabia, Africa, and India to the Greco-Roman world. But their real wealth came from taxation. One historical account suggests they charged up to 25% on imported goods, turning Petra into a hub of both commerce and control.
The Nabateans carved monumental cities into sandstone cliffs, including Petra, which covers over 100 square miles.
Petra was annexed by Rome in 106 CE, and repeated earthquakes, particularly in 363 and again in 551, severely damaged its infrastructure. As trade routes shifted, Petra's commercial importance declined, and by the early Islamic period, it was no longer a major settlement. When Western explorers arrived in the 1800s, they found a city of monuments, but little evidence of the lives once lived among them.
In 2024, excavations at Petra's most iconic monument, Al Khazna, referred to as the Treasury in English, reveal a surprise.
The plaza in front of the treasury was once a flat courtyard, maybe decorated with fountains, maybe a pond, but it's more than that. It's also the roof of a hidden tomb. And inside that tomb, 12 intact skeletons have been found alongside bronze, ceramic, and iron artifacts. That is an extraordinary discovery for Petra because there, human remains are rarely found after centuries of looting.
The tomb itself is 9 feet tall and measures around 18 by 18 feet. While Petra's porous sandstone, humidity, and seasonal flooding likely caused the loss of delicate materials like fabric, dating evidence of the tomb points to between the 1st century BCE and the 1st century CE, right at the height of Nabatean power.
Initial indications of a subsurface chamber near the site were documented as early as 2003, and other tombs were identified a year later. But it was only recently that new surveys using ground-penetrating radar confirmed structural anomalies under the forecourt, which ultimately led to the chamber's rediscovery and excavation. So who were these people, and why were they buried here? And what might this reveal about the Nabatean world?
Certain burial details hint that the space may have held sacred significance.
Little is known of Nabatean religion, but it appears to have been polytheistic and symbolic. A priestly class, including both men and women, oversaw rituals involving the worship of sun and sky gods. So, if the treasury held spiritual meaning, could the 12 individuals buried here represent a religious order of some kind, tasked with preserving the sanctity of the site itself?
The treasury's iconography blends figures like Isis Tyche, Castor, Pollux. It's got these carved obelisks which draw on Egyptian and Hellenistic and Nabatean traditions. And all that visual language suggests that this monument may have served not only as a tomb, but as a sacred or cosmological space, a place that reflected the elevated status of the people who were buried here.
Across the ancient world, the number 12 carried powerful symbolic weight. It marked time, 12 hours of day, 12 hours of night, and aligned with the months, zodiac signs, and celestial cycles. Some traditions saw it as the meeting point of sacred and secular, or the sum of life and fortune. So in that context, the burial of 12 people may have been a deliberate statement.
One of the skeletons was found clutching the broken top of a ceramic vessel. It had a curved silhouette, which looked a lot like the way the Holy Grail is depicted in Hollywood movies. Whether this object was a marker of status, or served in a funeral rite, or maybe symbolized a sacred offering, we just don't know. Archaeologists have described it as just a humble jug. So its exact purpose here is a mystery.
Some features of the burial may indicate a decision shaped by disruption rather than design.
The skeletons include adults and children, possibly of both sexes, all found undisturbed as originally interred. So, was this a rapid, improvised burial carried out in response to some unexpected, potentially catastrophic event?
A lot of Nabatean tombs at Petra were built for long-term commemoration with libation channels and even banquet rooms. In these spaces, the living could engage with the dead through these big ceremonies involving incense and food and light. But the interior of the treasury is stark. It's this massive cube cut into the rock with 3 small antechambers. That simplicity might mean it functioned as an emergency burial site. Maybe it's a place that was triggered by disaster or disease or even violence.
The treasury likely dates to a time of rapid expansion and encroaching Roman pressure. While no direct evidence of internal conflict or mass killings have been reported, the fact that the tomb was so concealed that it avoided centuries of looting raises the possibility that these individuals were meant to be concealed instead of commemorated.
Other excavations at Northridge have revealed signs of seismic damage, like collapsed masonry. And all that is likely linked to a huge earthquake that we know happened here in the year 363. Now, there's no direct evidence of a major earthquake during the treasury's construction, but a similar structural failure nearby could have caused sudden death, which would have prompted that chamber's use as a burial site.
But not all the evidence supports a crisis scenario. Research suggests that Petra's population was relatively healthy. The skeletons so far show no clear signs of illness or trauma, and the treasury itself has long been considered part of Petra's funerary landscape. Evidence of other voids in the treasury suggests that there may be other unexcavated tombs nearby, raising the possibility that this wasn't an improvised burial at all.
The strongest evidence of the identities of the interred may lie in the sheer scale of the monument itself.
The Nabateans placed immense cultural value on protecting and commemorating the dead. At Petra, over 1,000 tombs are carved into the landscape. Around 600 of them are marked by monumental facades that publicly signal the identity and stature of those buried within. In a society where visibility signaled prestige, could a discovery like this be the final resting place of an elite or even royal family?
Many believe the treasury was likely constructed as a royal mausoleum or crypt during the reign of Aretas IV Philopatris, who ruled the Nabatean kingdom from around 9 BCE to 40 CE, a time when monumental construction reinforced dynastic power and political order. So it is possible the 12 individuals buried here were part of that lineage.
Roughly 300 miles south of Petra, in Saudi Arabia, another Nabatean site shows how status was signaled through scale and design.
At what is now the Hegra archaeological site, the Nabateans carved 111 monumental tombs into sandstone cliffs, 94 of those with elaborate facades. Many also included built-in wells, showing a deliberate blend of hydraulic planning and architectural display. So these tombs function not only as burial places, but as permanent markers of elite status by projecting identity and wealth and prestige out into the desert terrain. I mean, these are just amazing.
More than 50 tombs at Hegra bear inscriptions, some protective, some dedicatory. At Petra, those kinds of inscriptions are less common. Some say that this may reflect the city's role at the center of Nabatean power, where proximity to authority may have offered protection that didn't need to be carved in stone. The tomb beneath the treasury seems to fit that pattern. No inscriptions and no surviving record of who was buried there.
The treasury is among the most commanding monuments in Petra, which makes it reasonable to assume the individuals buried beneath it were of considerable status. But the elements seem to have consumed any fragile clues that the Nabateans may have left as their identity. Whether this was a sacred collective, victims of a crisis, or something we don't yet fully understand, the findings raise even more questions about the site itself and what exactly Nabatean burials entailed.
The Nabateans left behind few written records, and much of Petra remains unexcavated. Major questions remain about how people lived, what they believed, and what secrets still lie buried in the sand and stone.
Le Marche, the region familiar to Italians, but far less known to international tourists.
Well, we're never getting out of here alive.
It's one of the most beautiful and cultured regions of the country, with a cuisine to match.
Oh, I'm very excited.
That even now is still ripe for discovery.
Oh, time's up. All right, should we go to your restaurant?
Okay.
I'm Keegan-Michael Key, and Ore-Ida invented tater tots. Anyone else is just an imitator.
Speed and Michael Key here for potato nibblers, made from teeny tiny potatoes.
Well, Ore-Ida's tater tots are made from fully grown Oregon and Idaho potatoes.
Idaho.
With the perfect kick for steak and shrimp bucatini, Olive Garden's new Calabrian sauce just may become your new favorite homemade sauce. Then again, we're family, and families don't pick favorites. Okay, maybe they do.
Waking up with headaches? Sealy Posturepedics exclusive precision fit coils respond with targeted support right where you need it most.
Shop Sealy savings during the Memorial Day sale.
Bet you can't run as fast as T-Mobile.
Bet you I can.
Well, you better pick it up, because T-Mobile now has the fastest 5G home internet.
Watch this.
Month.
Hang on.
There is a child whose past holds the key to the future of the galaxy.
So do we run or do we fight?
The Mandalorian and Grogu. Rated PG-13. Get tickets now.
Just over 60 miles northwest of Glasgow, in the heart of the Scottish Highlands, lies Glencoe, a steep-sided valley with towering peaks and a rich, ancient history.
The clan system is central to Scottish heritage and rooted in the Highlands. A clan is a kinship community formed around a shared surname and ancestry. The word comes from the Gaelic term clan, meaning children or offspring, evoking the idea of family. But through shared history, culture, and identity. At its head stood the chief, regarded as the head of the wider family, with members looking to him for support and protection.
For nearly 400 years, Clan Donald commanded the West Highlands and Hebrides. Their chiefs bore the title Lord of the Isles, and their reach was second only to that of the kings of Scotland and England. The MacDonalds of Glencoe were a smaller branch of this dynasty.
17th century, they lived under the feudal authority of the Campbell Earls of Argyll, while their loyalty remained fixed on the Stuart kings. It was a volatile mix of politics that made Glencoe a fault line in the Highlands.
In August 2023, during an excavation at a rural 17th century hunting lodge, a University of Glasgow archaeology student discovers a hidden container in an unlikely place.
Beneath the hearthstone slab of the fireplace, they found a pot with a small, round pebble lid. Inside were 36 coins, minted across Europe between the late 1500s and the 1680s. Since none of them were struck after the 1680s and the site was in use from 1646 to...
Among the other finds were simple household items, a spindle whorl for making thread, a dress pin, and a pitchfork, reminders of the everyday lives of those who worked the land. They also uncovered a musket and fowling.
It's an impressive find for what looked to be an ordinary rural house. But the most striking detail is what never happened. You don't stash a pot of coins under the hearth unless you plan on coming back for it. And that's the real mystery here. Why was it buried in the first place, and why did no one return to retrieve it?
The strongest clue may lie in the world these clans inhabited. Raids, trace of those unsettled times.
In the Highlands, cattle were the backbone of wealth. With little arable land, herds were central to the country's economy and way of life, and reaving, these were raids to steal cattle, became a dangerous but essential practice. It allowed clans like the MacDonalds to assert power and replenish resources in a precarious landscape. Lochaber, the region that included Glencoe, was regarded as an epicenter of these raids. So could the Glencoe horde be the prophets of that trade?
From the 14th to the 17th centuries, the Anglo-Scottish border was a true frontier. Cattle rustling, feuds, arson, murder, intimidation, and pillaging were routine, even considered honorable ways to prove valor to your kin. Raids could be planned like military operations, lasting days with bands of armed men, or as simple as a moonlit ride to plunder a single farm before dawn.
The horde fits Glencoe's payout in ransom or protection if the MacDonalds themselves came under pressure from rivals. They also found fine wares from England, Germany, and the Netherlands, which could suggest this household traveled or had connections to wider trade as well as raiding. That combination could have brought different forms of wealth into Glencoe and may help explain why a hoard of mixed coins was concealed here.
But here's the issue. Cattle raiding brought wealth, but it was also about stealing crops and animals in order to feed yourself. Raids were seasonal, often timed in autumn when food stores ran low. And whatever profits came in would have likely been doesn't match the way that the economy worked. So there's likely a different reason for concealing it.
Among the mix of currencies, one coin stands out as a piece that may carry meaning beyond its monetary value.
The MacDonalds of Glencoe were staunch Jacobites, supporters of King James VII of Scotland. Loyalty to the Stuart kings could sometimes be expressed through objects like coins and medals bearing their image. One coin in the hoard was also pierced, perhaps to be Is it possible this hoard was a hidden pledge to the Jacobite cause?
King James was the second son of Charles I, who was executed after the English Civil Wars. Raised Protestant, James converted to Catholicism in 1668 or 69, a choice that reshaped his politics and made him suspect to many of his subjects.
As tensions mounted, James fled to France. In 1689, Parliament declared the throne vacant and crowned William of Orange and his wife, James's daughter Mary, as co-monarchs. But within months, James's supporters rose in rebellion to restore him to the throne. In July, Highland Jacobites under Viscount Dundee, among them Clan MacDonald, met the king's army at Killiecrankie. Their charge breaking the lines and killing over 1,000 troops in a stunning victory.
In the context of the 1689 uprising, the Glencoe coin hoard may take on a different meaning. Among the coins were pieces from France.
In 2020, on the shores of Loch Nan Uve, roughly 30 miles northwest of Glencoe, another Jacobite hoard came to light, this one tied directly to the final uprising.
Using metal detectors around a ruined agricultural settlement and house, an amateur archaeology team discovered a cache of more than 200 musket balls, together with gold and silver coins and gilt buttons. The find is believed to be part of an arms shipment from France that reached Lochaber just 2 weeks after the Battle of Culloden in April 1746.
The Battle of Culloden near Inverness was the final. Around 1,500 Jacobites were killed, ending any serious Stuart challenge to the throne.
The cache at Loch Nan Uve was uncovered at a dwelling once home to a Gaelic poet who had tutored the prince and later fought in the uprising. The musket balls also matched the caliber of French-supplied weapons used in battle, establishing a clear link to the Jacobite cause.
But the stash at Glencoe is different. The coins were found at a known hunting lodge alongside everyday items. It looks more like a domestic mix rather than a straightforward military stockpile. Interpreting the hoard as a Jacobite pledge might explain the pierced coin and some of the foreign pieces. Why bury them so soon after 1689 rising, and why were they never retrieved?
Safe Light Repair, Safe Light Replace.
Ooh, that's rough. At least with Safe Light, you can get that fixed any way you want.
Anywhere I want.
Any way you want it, that's the way you need it. Any way you want
I can schedule a chip fix while I get my hair clipped?
Yep.
They can fix my glass while we fish for bass.
If you want.
They can recalibrate my safety features while I sit at home in my comfy pants?
That one doesn't rhyme, but sure.
Get it fixed any way you want at SafeLight.com.
Safe Light Repair, Safe Light Replace.
Have you tried the new Chick-fil-A Jalapeno Ranch Club?
Did you see ranch?
I need a little ranch. Ranch.
A buttermilk ranch bun with a jalapeno kick. Introducing the Jalapeno Ranch Club. It's Chick-fil-A chicken, all ranched up.
This is the joy of traveling well. Oceania Cruises.
T-Mobile now has the fastest 5G home internet, just $35 a month.
They say higher education is outdated, irrelevant. But at Grand Canyon University, we shatter the status quo. GCU's online master's degree programs in technology combine hands-on projects with coursework to help you innovate across digital and physical environments.
At GCU, you can learn to use technology with faith, integrity, and purpose.
This is purpose-driven education. Take action. Find your purpose at Grand Canyon University. Visit gcu.edu.
Chipotle Honey Chicken is back this summer with fresh grilled chicken, spicy Chipotle peppers, and the perfect touch of pure honey. Open the summer with Chipotle Honey Chicken. It's taking heat and sweet to a whole new level.
This is what we do. We maintain and we obsess, trusting Pennzoil to protect what matters most. When you do it right, you're protecting an engine for its lifetime.
Engine protection for the lifetime of your vehicle. Pennzoil. Long may we drive.
Here's my LGBTQ. Where are you? Thank you very much. Thanks for coming out. And also coming to the show. Hey! Shut up! I'm pissed off so often lately, you guys, I swear. Because I'm a grown-ass woman in America and I'm paying attention. If I had known we were headed toward The Handmaid's Tale and I was going to be wearing that big red cape, I wouldn't have cut out carbs.
In February 1692, soldiers accepted as guests in MacDonald homes turned on their hosts. The betrayal, remembered as the Massacre of Glencoe, is one of the darkest chapters in Scottish history, and the horde may be its last surviving witness.
The MacDonalds and the Campbells had a long, tangled history. By the late 17th century, their rivalry was bound up in politics and in the wider fight for the throne. The MacDonalds held to the deposed King James, while the Campbells aligned with William III.
Determined to secure loyalty in the Highlands, the government ordered all chiefs to swear allegiance to William III by January 1st, 1692. Money, land, and indemnity were offered as incentives, but refusal meant punishment under the full weight of the law.
News reached Glencoe only on December 28th. 3 days later, Chief McLean set out to swear the oath that would protect his clan, only to be told it must be witnessed by a sheriff 60 miles away in Inverary, the Campbell stronghold. Delayed by Campbell troops, he arrived late, pleaded for acceptance, and left believing his oath would stand.
In early February, about 120 men from the Earl of Argyll's regiment, led by Campbell, arrived in Glencoe, claiming Fort William was full. True to Highland hospitality, the MacDonalds took them in, feeding and sheltering them for nearly 2 weeks.
But in the pre-dawn hours of February 13th, as a blizzard swept through Glencoe, the mask of friendship fell. Captain Robert Campbell of Glenlyon had received orders to turn on his hosts and kill every MacDonald under the age of 70.
Early that morning, the slaughter began. It was believed Chief McLean was shot as he tried to rise from his bed. His wife froze to death in the snow. Some 38 MacDonald men, women, and children were killed, though many who fled into the glen later died from exposure.
That urgency may explain why the hoard was concealed, but the coins themselves could also have served a more ordinary purpose. Mixed European pieces like these were sometimes used as gaming tokens, and gambling is well recorded in Gaelic poetry and tradition. It's a reminder that, even in times of turmoil, people held on to the rituals of daily life.
The Glencoe hoard preserves a fleeting moment when a familiar world was shattered by betrayal. Its survival is a buried testament to the violence that transformed the Highlands and to the fragile traces of life that history nearly erased. Just 8 miles inland from the Pacific, Central Lima rises on the south bank of the Rimac River, known as El Pulpo, the octopus. Its influence spreads into every corner of Peru.
Between around 200 and 700 CE, the Lima culture flourished along Peru's central coast. Its rulers are thought to have been the most elite warriors among them. And those rulers built adobe pyramids, they built irrigation canals, they raised fortified towns, and they established these great centers like